of September, the day after September 11th, the 22-year anniversary of the attacks on September 11th. And I am here with David, the intrepid Mr. Darnell. Looks like he froze again because somebody's jamming his Starlink. But he'll be back shortly. Meanwhile, some of us remember all the way back when there was a group called 912 Project, which was supposed to talk about everything post 9/11 and how the world is going to be different and better. And I don't even know if those groups are still around, but yesterday was an important day. We did an interview with Alan Alley, former Oregon Republican Party chairman and gubernatorial candidate for the GOP nomination in 2010 and 2016, and just talked about 9/11 and a bunch of other things. It was a good show. Take a look at it. It was fun. David is back.
Are you talking about the show we just did that I missed?
No, it was yesterday, but it's kind of funny.
I heard the 13th day of, and then I got the little message, but I don't know. I'm having internet problems, everybody. Starlink was down earlier today, apparently worldwide. So if I freeze up and go away, I may or may not be back another day.
Well, I know someone who actually saw the constellation of Starlink satellites, and on a clear night, you can actually see them kind of go across the sky. They look like a,
we see them all the time.
Yeah, and it's like almost like a perforation or a dotted line or something through the sky of the satellite. So it's really interesting.
It's a little freaky when you first see it.
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the space station, and the space station is really interesting because it's traveling really fast because it's low Earth orbit, just like those Starlink satellites are, and it crosses diagonally, across the sky. So it does a slightly different iteration, but it's big, and of course, it's reflecting the sun. But yeah, I hope Starlink bounces back here. I know that the Russians would love to shut it down. Based on recent headlines. And
that's always the scuttlebutt around my house when the internet goes down. I will have to say Starlink, I can only remember Starlink itself going down a couple times since I've had it. And today was probably maybe the third time. But yeah, the fun thing around our house is, did the Chinese finally shoot down the all of Elon's Starlink satellites?
Yeah. There's that, or the Brandon administration might try to jam them because, freedom, it's not good. They don't like them. He's the bad electric car maker instead of the good ones that Brandon likes. But ever since Twitter takeover, it's just there's no way
there's no redemption for wrong speak. If you engage in wrong speak, or if you engage in wrong think, there's no redemption on the ultra left, or even the left, really, the left even, or anyone that does so. And unfortunately, Elon Musk has fallen from grace. I mean, he was the darling at one time of leftists with his electric cars and his reliance on government contracts to make money.
Yeah. Well, he made enough money earlier, and now maybe he's just being forced off of them. Although he is essentially doing such a better job than anyone else, including NASA, with developing rockets that actually get into space without blowing up and stuff.
Yeah.
That I think he's going to have those contracts for a long time.
Yeah, and it's got to be saving the taxpayers billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Especially to have something that works and actually gets developed. They've been developing, I forget what it's called, is it Artemis or something like that? They've spent like 15 years developing a rocket that still doesn't work at NASA. And they've just, and in the matter of space of just a few years, they developed Starship Super Heavy. And the only thing that's stopping them from proceeding with it is that the FAA won't let them take off. They have to satisfy a bunch of requirements and send them to a bunch of bureaucrats at the FAA, who, by the way, don't know anything about space flight or rockets. But they work for Brandon, and Brandon, his people do whatever they want, pretty much. Did I catch you freezing again? Oh, there we
You
go.
did. I'm sorry, everybody. It's worse than usual for whatever reason.
Atmospheric conditions. It's climate change, David. Climate change caused that. It is, fossil fuels.
Yeah, God, how could I forget that?
Well,
You can't use Google without being assaulted by climate change alarmism. So, and I
that's
do
right.
use Google.
Well, so 22 years ago, plus one day. What was your story? I wanted to ask you that.
I was wearing my puppy dog slippers that one of my kids got me for Christmas, which I wore until they died at about 5:30 in the morning. And I was drinking coffee, getting ready for work, watching the news as normal, and saw the plane. Saw that a plane had hit, and like everybody else, didn't know what. And then the second plane hit, and I'm not sure if I went to work or not. But you know what I remember most was that many years ago today, the 12th of September, which was a very different day for many Americans. I remember physically the skies were blue and there were no airplanes in the sky.
Yeah.
There was a nasty accident a few miles up the road from where I lived that I happened upon, in which I was giving aid to a woman who was unconscious and making gurgling noises. She was pregnant too. And there was a countrywide ban on air travel, and that included Life Flight. It did, and so there was. It took some wrangling to get a helicopter there to get that lady on it and get her. I don't know what happened to her, but that's what I remember. And I remember that at least superficially, most Americans seem to be on the same side on September 12th. Maybe not the 13th, or probably not by the 15th or the end of the month, but everyone seemed to be on the same side for one day that I can remember in America. And that's what I remember most about September 11th is September 12th.
Yeah, it was an unusual day, and it was a day where it was really hard to reconcile what happened the previous day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, of course, I'm not sure when I don't know if this truther movement started on September 11th or the 12th or the 13th or the end of the month, but the way I saw it, we had been attacked in a coordinated fashion, and clearly thousands of people died in that attack. And at least in my recollection, it was about 100 million times worse than January 6th.
Yeah. Like January 6th, an unarmed guy in a Wookiee outfit is led into the Senate chamber, and
given a tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very nice, polite tour, as near as I can tell from there didn't seem to be any yelling or screaming or fist throwing or facing off or guns drawn, except for Ashley Babbitt on those videos that were finally released. So we. So it was definitely a bad day in America, but I think 9/12 was probably one of America's better days.
Yeah, I agree. And in the few days that it ensued after that, Bush's visit to Ground Zero was a great moment with the firefighter. So was so was the Yankee Stadium, and them getting back and saying, we're going to play baseball. That's it. They're not stopping us. And everybody, the feeling in that stadium, which you could feel through the TV, it was great. And I think that everybody sort of yearns for that moment, even though it was born out of tragedy. There's a certain part of America that just wants that still, but it's very hard to get to. And but I'm a little concerned, and this actually leads into our first story here, which I'm a little concerned that people who actually know what they're talking about, such as Mark Morgan, the former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, he's been a real truth teller on the border. He's like, we've gotten complacent. The U.S. isn't safer than it was on 9/11 because literally anyone can walk across that border.
Yeah, literally anyone, and literally everyone, or close to everyone, has.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're not all, they're not all poor migrants looking for a better life. We've got some great, as you know, we get great reporting out of Michael Yon on that, and
Yep.
we see people coming up the Darien Gap and across the border who, got there with money, and they got money on the other side, and they're fit, and they're,
Military age males. Yeah.
military age males. Yes, we see a lot of military age males. And actually, I was looking at border patrol statistics, and they do in fact indicate that most of the encounters are with military age males.
Yes, and also from two noteworthy. I mean, certainly you're getting them from the Middle East. There was a guy that was caught who was a what do you call it? Like a smuggler, a human smuggler, who was on the terrorist watch list as having direct connections with ISIS, which, I mean, if anybody could bring back ISIS, it's Joe Biden. He's given them new life by giving them a new way to get in here. And you know how everybody, the big blame game about who let these people into the country and let them go to training school to get trained to fly planes and then get onto these planes with box cutters on. I mean, that looks like child's play compared to what you could do if you could get tens or hundreds or even thousands of people when there's like millions of people coming across the border. You could easily get a platoon of people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, like you've pointed out, one of your concerns and one of your areas of interest is the grid, the infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, you get 10,000 people, 20,000 people here, and you can blow up a lot of substations and cripple America like it's never been crippled. It's particularly now because we have suffered a supreme amount of supply issues. We're still waiting over a year. I am personally for properties upon which I want to put a underground 480 service of any size, 480 volt service of any size. Those transformers a year and a half out, and the substation transformers are way out as well. So you hit 10,000 of those things with 20,000 people or whatever it is, and it's a year and a half, 2 years before you have power restored on a permanent basis. Now, when substations do go down or when we have fires, they will shut the grid down and they will power substations that the grid connects with generators so that the power lines, because, they burn. This last one that we had here, the power lines went right through the middle of it. So they just disconnected everything and set up generators at a dozen or so substations. But you can't do that if we get a large coordinated attack. And
those generators, they don't run on butterfly farts. I mean, they
don't run on solar either. They don't run on solar. They don't run on wind. They don't run on unicorn shit. They run on fossil fuels.
Yeah, we'll be in short supply in the middle of a major grid shutdown and a panic, which would ensue. But they don't even have to attack 10,000 places. There's 9 major substations that pretty much run the U.S. grid. 9,
right.
The big ones, the ones that are size of like a city block.
Yeah,
and I think the guy at Oklahoma City bombing gave him the roadmap. You just fill a couple trucks of diesel and fertilizer and take those things out. And it's just, but it's, the very entity that was designed to restore safety and security after 9/11 is actually being used by the Brandon administration to make us unsafe. They're doing the opposite. It's not like they're just neglecting to keep us safe. They're actually making the southern border a place where these guys can easily come through. And there's no capacity for stopping them. There's no way to find them. Once they get in, they'll just disappear.
Oh, yeah. It's a big country. It's a big country, and back to your large substations and your fertilizer. Did anybody find all that ammonium nitrate that was went missing from the train tracks? Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, they don't have to bring in their own bombs. They can just
the FBI is going to fix them up. I think. I don't know. Can we say that without getting?
Yeah, no kidding. If you can hear us, Brandon administration, we really do think this.
I think we're an entertainment only show.
We're infotainment. Yeah,
we said that for entertainment purposes.
That's right. Just satire disclaimer. But the Brandon administration is led by somebody who claims that he actually visited Ground Zero the day after 9/11. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of writing a book that puts him in Washington, D.C. on 9/12 and nowhere near the World Trade Center. So we have a president who doesn't even know where he was, keeps up making stories about where he was or what his son did or his other son didn't do. And where he is, so there's several stories. I mean, his memory is for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, I think that's it. Unfortunately, he's also in charge of thousands of nuclear weapons.
Yeah,
and the safety and security of the United States. But don't worry your pretty little heads about that. However, he was in Vietnam on Sunday. He didn't have time on September 11th, Monday, to go to New York City or Washington, D.C. or Shanksville, like every other president has done since 9/11. He was in Alaska. But I think it's more interesting what he was doing on Sunday. He was in Vietnam, and apparently he was cut off in mid-sentence at a Vietnam press conference and left the stage with some jazzy music playing. And this is after he was there to get relations to go better with Vietnam. Apparently he insulted them. I know. And then complimented the Chinese and said that he's not trying to contain China. So he's like, but here's what he said. And I'm going to post the video because anybody who sees this should watch this for themselves. He goes, he turned to President Lee, the Vietnamese president, and signaled that he was ready to head out. And he goes, I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to bed. And he just walked off the stage and left. Peter Doocy, who's the correspondent for Fox News as part of the press pool, said he's basically been working all through the night, all-nighter Eastern time. So he's probably pretty tired, jet lagged. And which is true, but that just shows this guy has no stamina whatsoever. But it does prove something that President Trump called him Sleepy Joe. And yeah, he's Sleepy Joe. He falls asleep at big meetings. I mean, he didn't fall asleep here. He just basically sounded like he was drugged up and unable to converse, and then just left in the middle of a major diplomatic event so that he could go hide in Alaska on 9/11 anniversary.
Well, Kevin, he's been fighting for the American people for 50 years. Okay, he's tired. He's tired, Kevin.
Yeah, well, he's a great candidate. Let's keep him. I say let's run against Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, he will be unable to actually attend campaign events. Unable, not just unwise, but unable. And but yeah, so Biden said he doesn't want to contain China and insulted the Vietnamese. So great leadership. That'll prevent a war. Chinese are laughing. Must be laughing at this, like that we even send this guy anywhere. At least the Chinese, if they had a leader like this who was so and like the Soviets used to have leaders like this, they were smart enough not to send them anywhere. They just stuck them in a room in the Kremlin and just ran the place without. We actually send this guy out to demonstrate to the world.
Plus, they got rid of him.
Yeah, that's right. They suddenly took ill and got pneumonia and died.
Time with their dead ancestors.
But I think the clock is ticking on Biden no matter what, because big news
That's a
this
fact.
morning. Yeah, in so many ways.
Statistically, he's about 2 years overdone.
Yeah, he's a well done steak that's heading for the well, here in Portland we have to put it in the compost, but yeah, he's a compostable Democrat for sure.
Yeah. Is he 80? I don't. How old is he?
I think he will be 86, won't he? Or 84 if he completes.
I mean, how old is he now?
I think he's
about 80.
He's 81 or something.
Really?
But he looks 90, which is great. But the Speaker McCarthy actually announced today that there's going to be a formal Biden impeachment inquiry. They are charging the House Oversight Committee, headed by Congressman Comer, to lead the effort. He'll be supported by House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. And this is the reports. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls, had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's business partners. And the next logical step is to find out what was in his bank accounts and in all of his correspondence that the National Archive is trying to hide, which is amazing because they didn't hide stuff when it was Trump, did they? They turned. So an impeachment inquiry technically makes it almost impossible for these entities to withhold the stuff. That there will be court fights, but impeachment inquiries pretty much win in court, and that's the whole idea. It's an inquiry. So they're going to find out if there's something there and then proceed. I think this is actually really important because I don't think an impeachment, when it goes to the Democrats in the Senate, have no shame. Smucky Chucky Schumer, as Mark Levin calls him, there's not going to be. They're going to all hold the line, and there's not going to be a vote to remove him from office. Especially since the Democrats know that Kamala Harris would be the alternative, which she was yucking it up. She was laughing and giggling at the 9/11 commemoration yesterday.
Well, that's what she does. That's what she does. Cackler.
Yeah. And you know who was the hero that showed up and everybody wanted to talk to him and not her?
Who?
Rudy Giuliani. America's mayor. So, but I think we got to expose all this information because this is righting a wrong from 2020, and it's righting a wrong for 2024 for sure. And then they should go after everybody who covered this crap up. Everyone who lied, every FBI or DOJ personnel that participated in this massive cover up. Yeah, I don't care about Joe Biden's mental capacity. He had enough mental capacity apparently to lie repeatedly and win the election because of it, supposedly.
Yeah, well, he's embarrassing. So
he's corrupt. He's corrupt. I think that they're going to find that there was indeed bribery, and he knew about it and took action to reciprocate on the bribery. And guess what? That is one of the crimes described in the impeachment clause in the Constitution that you can impeach somebody for. Bribery.
I was trying to figure out if Larry here was a troll, and he certainly is.
No, we got a.
I love the education argument. The guy's such a moron; he doesn't know. Whatever. I always feel better when we have a troll. I feel like we're doing a better job when we have a troll like Larry. Now, Larry,
when you're uncovering
thinks that we're Gen X.
What's that?
He apparently thinks that we're Gen Xers. You're a Gen Xer, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Well, when you're uncovering a pile of poop, the real evidence that you are doing that are the flies that accumulate in the area, and he'd be one of them, I guess. So welcome to the pile of poop that we're uncovering.
Yeah.
Now, there's more in terms of cover-ups and corruption. So House Republicans are pushing Merrick Garland, the guy who almost got out of the Supreme Court, and thank the Lord he didn't. for info about Hunter Biden's lawyers who are pushing to have whistleblowers. Remember don't touch whistleblowers; they're sacred. If they're telling,
well, depending on whose administration it is, you bet.
yeah. So these people followed federal law and made protected disclosures to Congress, and Hunter Biden's lawyers apparently have enough sway with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, who's supposedly investigating him, I guess, to push to get the prosecutors or the whistleblowers prosecuted. So, and Congress is trying to uncover this because you're not supposed to do that. If people come and disclose wrongdoing to Congress, their jobs are protected. You cannot retaliate against them. It is illegal. And yet that's exactly what Hunter Biden's lawyers have been trying to get the DOJ to do. And apparently they got plenty of meetings with people. So just the crap that is going to be uncovered in the process of this is just astounding. Like, we're going to want to throw out half the federal bureaucracy. Just get rid of it.
Oh, we already want to do that. we want to throw out much more than half, Kevin.
Well, I agree. It's by the time all is said and done, a lot of this federal bureaucracy is going to be on the street, and if we actually succeed here, but I also don't know. Oops, I just posted it twice here. I didn't mean to do that. These are people that thought they were prosecuting somebody or investigating somebody, and then were told not to investigate Biden, either one. And they're puzzled by that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I tend to think that probably 9 out of 10 people in Washington, D.C. are lining their own pockets in some fashion, or at least are, their own self-interest.
Yeah.
So yeah, if 75% of them, 90% of them went away, it wouldn't bother me.
I'd like to figure out how to save the good ones and put them in charge of stuff that the government is supposed to be doing, but I don't know. I just don't know, because every time you turn around, it's like a what are those things that eat wood, and then you find a few of them, termites, and then by the time you see termites crawling around on your floor, your house is probably done.
Right.
And because they're everywhere, and that's what I'm fearful of. Now, speaking of whistleblowers, apparently the CIA officials were paid to change their view that COVID originated in a Wuhan lab. Something that we actually know now is a near certainty, right? As close as you can get to it. And that this was known by the intelligence agencies, not during the Biden administration, but during the Trump administration. And then it persisted. Well, and they told Trump it was naturally occurring, and they got Fauci to go claim it would occurred naturally, but it's pretty convincing now, right?
Yeah.
But it says 6 of the 7 members of the coronavirus pandemic, what is it called? The COVID discovery team concluded that COVID originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, China, but they changed their positions after receiving a monetary incentive. A senior level CIA agent told Congress. And now they're Mike Turner, who's the Intelligence Committee chair, and there's a subcommittee that's looking into this as well. They said 6 of the 7 members of the team believe the intelligence and the science were sufficient to make a low confidence assessment that COVID-19 originated from a lab in Wuhan, China. The 7th member, its most senior person, was the only person to believe the virus originated from an animal. The whistleblower further contends that to come to the eventual public determination of uncertainty, the other 6 members were given a significant monetary incentive to change their position. I don't know. I don't think you could pay me enough money to lie like that on something that important, but they must have been willing. I don't know. The allegations, which stemmed from a, quote, seemingly credible source, unquote, require Congress to investigate how the CIA handled its investigation of the COVID origins. The CIA handed their information over to committees as part of the probe, and they threatened to use additional tools and authorities to satisfy our legislative and oversight requirements if the agency does not comply. So, and this somehow involves, this is a letter that was sent to CIA Director William Burns. So we all knew that the CIA was messing around in this stuff. But this is worse than we thought, right? This wasn't an honest debate between, professionals or intelligence analysts. This was a conclusion that was changed. And I want to know by whom and why, actually, because I think there's treason involved in this.
Well, there was certainly a lot of collusion between many different entities during that period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw it. I mean, you still can't say certain things, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, can you say that COVID was a bioweapon that came out of a Chinese lab? Can you say that?
Yeah, probably not.
I know Larry won't like it. Larry said that we don't have tanks, attack helicopters, or missile systems, so we'll all be dead soon. So Larry wants us dead because I'm not sure why, but apparently he thinks we're uneducated and shouldn't be allowed to live in America. So.
Well, he might be right about one thing. We have shipped off a lot of this stuff to Ukraine, so actually, when we do need them, we probably won't have them. That could be a good point. But then that's not a reason.
Pretty sure Larry's never fought a war.
Or he's fighting a battle of internal conflict of some kind. I would hope. Yeah. But anyway,
and I'm pretty sure that he knows whether or not purple crayons taste like grape.
You might be right about that. Well, we'll move on from that very important issue to another one, which is that apparently, in order to approve the most recent COVID booster,
bring it, Larry. Larry wants a civil war. Bring it, buddy. Just give me your address.
So apparently they've approved a new COVID booster. But the FDA they did this by the FDA circumvented all the advisory groups that they had set up to tell them whether or not it was a good idea, because apparently they wanted to hear. So there's a pediatrician, Dr. Paul Offit, and vaccine advisor to the Food and Drug Administration, said most healthy young Americans do not require an additional COVID-19 booster shot, which has been abundantly clear since the rate at which young Americans become seriously ill or die from it is microscopically low, and I believe flu actually surpasses that rate. And that's what I heard. I'm not going to claim that I have the report in front of me. However, what they're saying here, and this is the real point, is that it's a one-size-fits-all strategy that the FDA wants. They want to say everybody has to do it. But actually, there's not really a good reason for young people to do it. And the advisors to the FDA are the ones who are saying this. Rand Paul is trying to bring this forward, the senator from Kentucky, so that people can see this. We're literally catching them right in the middle of all of this as they're doing it. And I thought they, by now they might have become a little reticent to do this, maybe learn their lesson, but no, they just keep doing the same thing because they never pay any price for conducting themselves in this manner. And they've been withholding safety data, according to Senator Ron Johnson, something called empirical Bayesian data mining of the vaccine adverse events reporting system. The Congress apparently can't get the information, even though Congress, as representatives of the American people, are entitled to it. It's bizarre. And then, of course, there was the recent news that Megyn Kelly, former Fox News host and podcaster, said that she believed that she had developed an autoimmune issue after receiving a booster, and now regrets having gotten a shot. So she's there's just a lot of stuff that's happening. It's all happened within the last couple of weeks that around this renewal of the booster, and then they're going to put a multi $100 million ad campaign together to tell everybody they have to do this. It's time we had a real debate, public debate, fully informed debate, and that seems to be still difficult to do. And we're how many years into this?
Yeah, well, 3 years.
3.5.
Yeah, 3 years. You still can't talk about it. We talked about it way back when. I'm not sure how I guess we've been severely throttled in our reach, but I'm not sure how they didn't just kick us off for being the medical heretics that we were at the time. But it's kind of odd that 3 years later, there are some legitimate questions. There's always been a large body of one would assume qualified medical professionals, people with doctorates, that's cautioned, and fortunately, those people are speaking up. They were speaking up back then, and they were being deplatformed. They were having their medical licenses removed, their practices shut down, their websites shut down. And you're right. We need to have kind of an open debate. I mean, I feel bad for people who don't have the discernment to trust, or don't have the discernment to figure out whether or not government colluders like most large media, they don't have the discernment to figure out whether or not they're being told the truth. A lot of people just believe. I mean, I've got a 95-year-old mother-in-law, 93-year-old mother-in-law, and if the doctor tells her to do it, she's just going to do it. I mean, that's just all there is to it.
Yeah, they don't really push back or question it. Same with pediatricians. Most parents are like, whatever the pediatrician says. And by the way, here's one fascinating thing about this booster that is being approved. According to a statement in a USA Today article about this, the authorization relies only on mouse data, which Dr. John Moore, a vaccine and virology expert at Weill Cornell Medicine in New York, said this would be unprecedented in my knowledge and would certainly raise eyebrows, which means that the only thing standing between you and something not going well with a vaccine like this is a mouse. I guess that makes us all kind of mice,
Well, yeah, it certainly makes us mice in the eyes of those that are selling, untested. I'm not even sure you can call them vaccines. I mean, the word vaccine, has a long history of being usually a substance that introduces a small amount of the disease, and your body builds a natural immunity to it. And I'm not sure vaccine fits this particular therapy, if you will.
Yeah. No, that's just it. And they still don't seem to count having had COVID and developing natural immunity as meaning anything, apparently, which is so crazy to me. But all of medical history has been turned on its ear thanks to politicians and bureaucrats, but not science. Well, there's a really big story actually that we can lose sight of things, but big is going down in New Mexico. The governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, has issued an emergency order saying that.
Do you mean Hitler? Is that who you said?
Yes. Yes. She suspended open and concealed carry of firearms in the city of Albuquerque for a 30-day period. So see, no problem. You can have a gun in your house, but you can't go anywhere outside. And she claims it's because of drive-by shootings of a 5-year-old and 11-year-old children in a road rage incident. And her solution is to deprive every single person of their Second Amendment rights in the city of Albuquerque. And she's done it by claiming to declare a public health emergency, even though apparently New Mexico law offers no such ability to suspend rights
Yeah.
for a health emergency.
Yeah.
And
it's a
but
test tube. It's a test tube. They're sending up a weather balloon. Check the wind.
They're trying to see what they can get away with.
Sure.
Because if they get away with any part of this for any period of time, they're going to do it somewhere else, Oregon. And but here's one gratifying thing: the New Mexico Attorney General, who's also a Democrat, announced Tuesday that he will not defend the governor in these lawsuits and is opposing her.
Because he can't. And
he says, I do not believe the emergency order will have any meaningful impact on public safety. I do not believe it passes constitutional muster.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, yeah, he can't defend it without violating his oath of office.
That's right.
Yeah,
because he swore to uphold the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's pretty simple.
I mean, that's good news to hear, but I also think that one of the things that we need to be paying attention to is that there's a constitutional carry initiative petition here in the state of Oregon. And that petition is being circulated and everybody's like, well, why do we need that? We have the Second Amendment to prevent this stuff from even being considered by an Oregon governor, right? I mean, that's it. If they try it there in New Mexico, how long will it be before they try it in Oregon?
Let me hit my star.
Oh yeah, you got Starlink.
Got to hit my Starlink damn thing.
Yeah, so I think
damn right wing Elon Musk. Wrong speaker, wrong thinker.
Yeah, purveyor of false. What is it? False opinion. Yeah, false opinion.
False opinion. That's a good one.
That's one of my favorite new terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that's what's happening in New Mexico. But keep your eye on it because that's why we need an open carry provision in our Constitution here in Oregon to prevent them from even considering it or passing laws to affect that suspension of our Second Amendment rights. Speaking of Elon Musk, he called utter madness a law that is apparently going to be signed by Gavin Newsom in California. That is a gender affirming law, which says that a California could soon require a judge to consider a parent's support of child gender affirming procedures in custody and visitation determinations. So if, for instance, a parent is opposed to having their child's genitalia hacked off, and then they may actually be at a disadvantage in child custody hearings and divorce proceedings in the state of California. It's Assembly Bill 957. And obviously, and what Elon Musk said is he said it's this bill is a wolf in sheep's clothing. What it would actually mean is that if you disagree with the other parent about sterilizing your child, you lose custody. Utter madness.
Mutilating their child.
Mm-hmm.
Child genital mutilation, which, we're appalled by here in America when it's done in other countries. But now we're celebrating it here because somehow it's good. But
I know. Well, to
call it what it is. It's just straight up mutilating a child, and it's absolutely wrong and it's criminal. And everybody that does it should be thrown in jail.
Except now California is going to force the parent to have no say over their child.
Yeah,
or even be able to see them.
Yeah.
Well, it's only a matter of time before Oregon gets an idea that dumb.
Well, yeah, it is only a matter of time. It's, and I think the next session starts in January of next year.
Well, we need to work on some of our state legislators, including one Republican, to make sure that they don't even remotely consider an idea this bad. So now, there's a law here in the state of Oregon that was passed on the ballot in 2020 called Measure 110, and it has wreaked havoc in the state. It's so bad that actually what it's done is it's skyrocketed overdoses, and it's in Portland, in one weekend at one fire station, that fire station responded to 76 overdose calls in one weekend. This is, by the way, the same people that are supposed to respond if someone has a heart attack or a stroke or falls and injures themselves. You expect them to respond, but they may not have time because there's 76 overdose calls that they have to respond to administer Narcan to people who are being encouraged to keep doing drugs by Multnomah County and the harm reduction people that like to hand them straws and foil to do their fentanyl.
Right. Not to mention the Narcan.
Yeah. I mean,
so they must be going through 55-gallon jugs of Narcan.
They might have to pump it through, set up a pipeline and have a whole distribution system, like they used to water gardens, and just use that Narcan everywhere, just spraying it everywhere.
Yeah, right. Water trucks.
Exactly.
Drive down Portland. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a fluid. I guess it's a fluid of some sort. I wouldn't have the slightest idea. But yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not sure that. I guess Measure 110 certainly has something to do with that. But isn't more of it the fact?
They're jamming you. You're about to make sense on something, so I think they're jamming your Starlink. By the way, Measure 110 itself appears to be in great disfavor, and it's become international news. Sorry, go ahead.
I had a coherent thought, and then I froze up.
Well, see, you're just trying to demonstrate for everyone what happens with Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell. That they just like
glitchy Mitch, yeah,
glitchy Mitch,
Mitch the glitch.
Well, and let me try to fit in this last story before you walk off to jazzy music and just leave the show in the middle of the last report.
Yeah. I'm going to bed.
That's right. I'm done. So apparently Measure 110 is making national and international news because states and even foreign countries are starting to watch what we did and saying, whatever you do, don't do what Oregon did. It was a publication called Stateline is reviewing the fact that all these other states are starting to look at this and they're learning from our bad example. It's an excellent story. It's mentioned several state legislators, which we've had on this show, but Maine, California, Massachusetts, Colorado, they're all having second thoughts about trying to commit, in effect, societal suicide with passing a law that surrenders to the drug war and decides to promote its use everywhere.
Well, my coherent thought, if I don't freeze up again, thank you, Elon, is that I'm sure that Measure 110 has certainly contributed by decriminalizing only the use and possession of small amounts. I think the bigger picture is Portland doesn't prosecute any of the other crimes that these people are engaging in while they're using drugs.
Yeah, much less the drug traffickers.
Much less, yeah. It's almost like the law was written, and I've said this over and over again, and I say it to lots of different people. It's almost like this law, as well as many other laws in the state of Oregon, were written for drug cartels and human trafficking organizations.
Yeah, no, really, it maybe
exchange for cash.
Well, then in effect, they've been written by drug cartels and trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, the Oregon Democrats are coin-operated politicians. You stick coin in, and you get your prize on the other end. And the prize for this one in Measure 110 was your customers don't go to jail, so they use more, and no one's going to prosecute you for doing the actual illegal shit, which is selling it. So you're free and clear.
Well, the proponents of Measure 110 are still asking for more money and more time. And as they spend more money and waste more time, I think every day it's drawing closer that it says here that even even progressives in Seattle and Portland are fed up with the whole thing. And once you start losing progressives in Portland, you kind of might have lost the whole argument, frankly.
Yeah, but what's going to happen? What are they going to do? I mean, what's the average progressive voter going to do? Are they going to not vote for that?
That's a good question. If it's done at the ballot box,
I mean, what would Larry do? You know, Larry's gone now.
Larry do?
You know, what would you do, Larry? Would you not vote for the far left progressive commies that are turning our entire state into a shithole, or would you vote for somebody else? That's the question. So.
That is the big question. And if it ends up coming to the ballot box, I'm just wondering if the media is going to report accurately. They seem to be gleefully reporting that it's a disaster now, but you know what happens when it gets closer to election time? It usually shifts the other way, right?
Well, you can't. I mean, so let's say you're a progressive voter. You can't vote for a Republican, right? Because media tells you that Republicans are, well, Larry tells us that we're dumb and we're stupid and we're old and we're rural and we're uneducated and we all have diabetes and we're fat too. And apparently we can't fight a war, which, you know. And so what are you going to do? You can't, you can't. I mean, you need some sort of viable alternative because you can't stomach voting for someone who's willing to sweep the streets clear of urban campers and throw people in jail who are openly using drugs. You just can't do that. So I don't know. I know how I get around it. I don't vote for people. That's how you are. And that's how everybody except Larry that's watching is, but I don't know how the average voter gets around that. I don't know I don't know what their deal. I don't know what their options are.
Yeah. And I think that's where push comes to shove here. I am starting to see Democrats, even progressives, starting to defect from all of this. So I think they're going to find a way to admit they weren't wrong, but still change it at some point and say that and then take credit for fixing it. That's what's going to happen. I think but then they will underfix it, because there will be loopholes and there will still be bags of cash and there will still be all kinds of stuff. So it probably will just be a window dressing fix.
Well, can you imagine being a progressive politician, wanting a career in politics and like say the city of Portland, and you have to have this Venn diagram of all these different things, and you have to figure out where you can fit in there to get elected. I mean, because you can't say or do the wrong thing, otherwise you're immediately excommunicated. You're canceled. You're done. You're no longer a card carrying commie. So I'm not sure how they do it either. It must be really hard.
I know how they do it. I have the answer. That's the story I just posted. So this is a dude. This is one of my favorite stories this week, and it's a good one to end on here. Which is that there's a guy who in 2020, he's very woke. He was running a Portland cider tap room, but he actually encouraged Antifa to burn the city to the ground. He said, please smash all my windows if it will be a step towards change. This is Rev Nat's hard cider in Portland. And apparently after doing that in 2020 and encouraging the destruction of the city, 3 years later, he has closed his tap room and cites a business decline in the city.
Okay, well, there you have it. There you have it.
There's a picture of this guy too, and it's just like you see that face, and you're like, "Yeah."
Is his name Larry?
That's a good question. I don't see his name here, but his name's Nat West. Yeah, which sounds like the name of a bank. It doesn't sound like the name of a person, but anyway. But maybe he and Larry are buddies. That could be it.
You could go to any millennial American woman in her 20s or 30s and say that you're sorry how Matt treated her, and she'll start crying.
Well, on that note, we have hit all the stories that mattered.
I had to get a generational dig in there,
Absolutely.
So Larry entertained me, and it's too bad that he left to go lick windows, especially the ones that aren't dirty. Maybe he'll return.
Maybe he'll return. Larry, by the way, if you do listen to the end of this later, what you should do is go off and grab the chewing gum that's stuck to all of the public fences and accommodations and chew that for a little. Just clean things up. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate your contribution, Larry.
And lick some doorknobs while you're at it. So I think we definitely covered it all tonight here, David. Thanks for being on the show with me, and much appreciated. And thank you for sharing your story about 9/11, because I don't think I'd heard it, actually, even though we've talked so many times. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I think everybody in America's got one.
They do. And don't forget to keep sharing this show with everyone you can. And by the way, if you watch this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. On Twitter, please give us a like, a heart thing, and same on Facebook, because that'll help make sure that other people get to see this and that we get wider circulation. And share it directly with people you know, because if they'll at least get a laugh. And maybe they'll become more informed, which wouldn't be bad at all. That's the key to saving this city nation. Anyway, well, have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow night on the next episode of The Captive Audience. Have a great night.